just for the online people. Sometimes the internet connection is bad. So if we if the connection gets lost, so please wait. It will be connected in a few minutes, as soon as possible.
And if they want to ask questions, they'll ask directly, or they chatted, or what do they do?
You can, so at the end of the lecture, if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask.
So we started last night with a discussion of Swamiji's poem, the Song of the Sannyasin. And most of you know, of course, that this was composed when he was in Thousand Island Park in the year 1895. And the date was July 23rd. And the poem was lost, the original poem, for a long time. It was found many years later by some carpenter who was doing some work there at Thousand Island Park. But Swamiji had sent this poem to Alasingha Perumal, who was his Madrasi disciple, who was just starting the magazine called Brahmavadin, which became later Vedanta. And this was the first thing, this was the first composition that Swamiji sent for the new magazine. So it was very important in many respects. That summer at Thousand Island Park, Swamiji also gave monastic vows. And it seems to be that he gave the vows on July 22nd, the day before he composed the poem, which is also my birthday. But that had nothing to do with it. So should we start again? We all recite it together. The poem, you all have copies? You have a copy? Wake up the note, the song that had its birth far off, where worldly pain could never reach, in mountain caves and glades of forest deep, whose calm no sigh for lust or wealth or fame could ever dare to break, where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and bliss that follows both. Sing high that note, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker baser ore. Love, hate, good, bad, and all the dual throng. No, slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free. For fetters, though of gold, are not less strong to bind. Then off with them, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. Let darkness go, the will-o'-the-wisp that leads with blinking light to pile more gloom on gloom. This thirst for life forever quenched. It drags from birth to death, and death to birth the soul. He conquers all who conquers self. Know this and never yield, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. Who sows must reap, they say, and cause must bring the sure effect. Good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. But whoso wears a form must wear the chain. Too true, but far beyond both name and form is Atman, ever free. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. They know not truth who dream such vacant dreams as father, mother, children, wife, and friend. The sexless self, whose father he, whose child, whose friend, whose foe is he, who is but one. The self is all in all, none else exists. And thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. There is but one, the free, the knower, self, without a name, without a form or stain. In him is my dreaming all this dream. The witness, he appears as nature, soul. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. Where seekest thou? that freedom, friend, this world nor that can give. In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Then cease lament, let go thy hold, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Say peace to all. From me no danger be to aught that lives. In those that dwell on high, in those that lowly creep, I am the self in all. All life, both here and there, do I renounce. All heavens and earths and hells, all hopes and fears. Thus cut thy bonds, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Heed then no more how body lives or goes. Its task is done. Let karma float it down. Let one put garlands on, another kick this frame. Say naught. No praise or blame can be, where praiser praised and blamer blamed are one. Thus be thou calm, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Truth never comes where lust and fame and greed of gain reside. No man who thinks of woman as his wife can ever perfect be, nor he who owns the least of things, nor he whom anger chains can ever pass through Maya's gates. So give these up, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Have thou no home? What home can hold thee, friend? The sky thy roof, the grass thy bed, and food what chance may bring. Well cooked or ill, judge not. No food or drink can taint that noble self which knows itself. Like rolling river free thou ever be, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Few only know the truth. The rest will hate and laugh at thee, great one. But pay no heed. Go thou, the free, from place to place, and help them out of darkness, Maya's veil. Without the fear of pain or search for pleasure, go beyond them both, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Thus, day by day, till karma's power spent, release the soul forever. No more is birth, nor I, nor thou, nor God, nor man. The I has all become, the all is I and bliss. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So last night, I gave a little bit of an introduction. We went through the first verse. We see a combination here of tremendous renunciation and highest knowledge. Generally, the path of sannyasa and the path of Jnana Yoga are connected. In fact, there's a long tradition that Jnana Yoga is to be practiced only by a sannyasi. We don't follow that, of course. Thakur gave the highest wisdom to everybody. Householders were there, the future monks were there, and everything. He recommended the path of devotion for most people, but even for most of the sadhus, those even his direct disciples who became monks, even for them, in fact, it was almost Swamiji exclusively that he really recommended the path of Jnana Yoga, which has come to mean, the study of Vedanta, has come to mean Advaita Vedanta. And most of Bhakti Yoga is based on some idea of a distinction between God and the devotee. Now, in Sri Ramakrishna's understanding and his teachings, it's not an absolute distinction. This is what distinguishes him from most of the Bhakti teachers, that Bhakti Yoga was always considered to be a dualistic, based on a dualistic worldview. And qualified Vishishta Dvaita Vedanta is also dualism. We sometimes think that Vishishta Dvaita, that it's a Dvaita, but Vishishta Dvaita. It doesn't mean that. It means that the distinction is an internal distinction. So there's only Brahman, but within Brahman are all the individual jivas who are parts of the Brahman. So it is kind of dualistic, but not as like the Madhva dualism. In any event, Sri Ramakrishna said everything ends in oneness. And it's just a difference in the path. Even the devotee can end up with Brahmagyana. And based on the fact of this feeling of distinction. So this is a very important distinction. That most of the devotional teachers taught that there is a separation, not absolute. We may be part of God and everything, but they had a great hesitation to say that, yes, I'm one with God. There's no distinction whatsoever. It was based on a distinction. For Sri Ramakrishna, it's based on the feeling of distinction. It's the stick of ego lying on the surface of the ocean gives that feeling of separation. And once that stick of ego is removed, then the ocean alone is there. So this is why we say Jnana Misra Bhakti. One of the ways that his teaching is described is the blending of the path of knowledge and the path of devotion. So, but traditionally, so Swamiji here is emphasizing this renunciation and the highest wisdom. And not that Swamiji didn't teach Bhakti Yoga also, he taught a blending of all the yogas. But this is what we find here. So let's go through, we'll try to go through some of them tonight, and then we'll finish tomorrow morning. And most of you know I like questions. And if there's any particular verse that anybody wants to discuss or ask anything about, that'll be helpful if you stick up your hand and say something. Okay, so now we start out with bondage. This is the second verse. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker baser ore. What does that mean? Of shining gold or darker baser ore?
Gold chain, sir.
The gold chain. So what does that mean, the gold chain? If we look at the Gita, the chapter on gunas, of course, there's several different places where it comes up, that each one binds us. Tamas will bind us how? Through this darkness and indolence and lack of enthusiasm to do anything, and all very dark, negative types of emotions. Rajas will bind us through attachment. That we become very ambitious, we want to accumulate a lot of wealth, money, and everything. That will bind us that way. And sattva. Sattva is curious. See, we talk about three gunas. We could really talk about two gunas. We can combine rajas and tamas. And sattva is the one that saves us from them. Thakur tells the story of the three thieves. You all know this story?
Tell us again.
I'll tell you. Okay. That someone was walking through the forest, and these three thieves had come, and they wanted him to carry the bundles, something like that. And anyhow, he observed them with committing this theft, and they thought what to do with him. That he'll tell the police on us, so we have to do something. So one of them said, "We'll kill him. Then he won't be able to even talk. He won't be able to do anything." So the second person said, "No, that's too far. We don't have to go that far to kill him. We can just tie him to a tree. That'll serve the same purpose." So they agreed, they tied him to the tree, and then they all walked off. And then the third thief, he was a kind-hearted person, and he said, "This poor man, let me go back and untie him. He did nothing wrong." So he goes back and he unties him, and this man is very happy, and he thanks him very much. And he says, "Come with me, come to my village, that my people will be very happy." And first of all, he walks with him. He says, "We blindfolded you, you don't know your way home." And he walks him to the edge of the forest. And then he says, "Come with me, that my people they'll be so happy to find out how you saved my life and everything." And he said, no, I'm also one of the thieves. If I go there, they'll also catch me. But he's the one who saves him, who gets him out of the forest. So this Thomas kills us because it's a kind of death when we succumb to this complete lack of enthusiasm for anything. It's almost a type of depression that some people fall into, escapism, or they just can't bring themselves to do anything. A terrible type of bondage. But this other people who are very energetic, enthusiastic, who want to do lots of things and make a big name for themselves and accumulate a lot of money and everything, their attachment comes to, or bondage comes to attachment. And a very strong type of bondage. Now, what is this chain of gold? In Gita, it says that the sattva also binds us to attachment to knowledge and goodness and kindness, where we feel that now I'm a good person. See, I did a nice thing. I took him out of the forest. I showed him the way home and everything like that. So it's a chain of gold, but it can still bind us. So it's a very subtle thing. So the one way to look at these three gunas, when we talk about climbing the stairs to the roof, that first we'll have tamas. And then tamas, we have to, how do we get rid of tamas? Through rajas, through rajas. The Swamiji said that big mistake was to try to jump from one to the other. We have to go through the stages. And one of the problems with tamas is that it looks like sattva. It looks like sattva, so it's really tamas masquerading as sattva. This is what Swamiji found to be the problem in India after so many years of foreign domination. The mild Hindu, thinking he was very sattvic and everything, he said it was really sunk in tamas. So when he used to talk to young people, he would tell them, no, get up and do something. Make something of your life. And he would even tell them that, eat plenty of meat, my boys. The rajas, highly rajas, that type of thing to say, because just to get them out of this lethargy, this tamas. There are so many stories about Swamiji that he said one time, you'll understand Gita better by playing football, soccer, just to get them to do something. And then one young man came to him, and Swamiji could see, a little mild and meek and everything, but he had no grit, nothing. So Swamiji asked him, can you tell a lie? And he was surprised. And he says, no, Swamiji, I can never tell a lie. And he said, first learn to tell a lie. That means at least learn to do something. Even that takes some originality and creativity. At least do that much, and then go beyond that. So we get rid of tamas through rajas, and we get rid of rajas through sattva. And then we have to go beyond sattva. Sattva will be the final rung. Now, we make a big mistake if we start out by trying to transcend sattva. Why is that a mistake? Because we don't have it yet. We have to develop it. So for this spiritual seeker, at the stage that most of us are at, we should try very, very hard to develop sattva qualities, to be good and kind and to practice non-attachment and all of these things. Then if we develop this sattva, it should be a very easy thing to go beyond it. But sometimes that last chain is a little difficult. A little pride comes also. So this is I think what Swamiji means, that this is also one of the fetters of shining gold. That means even this sattva, there's little pride that comes that I'm a devotee of God, and a little bit of pride that comes from that, or dark or baser, or either one. So he would say both are chains, one of gold, one of iron, and one of gold. Love, hate, good, bad, and all the dual throne. So we'll find many themes from Gita here. These are called dvandvas, these pairs of our opposites. And one of the great themes of the Gita is this development of titiksha. that all of these dual throngs, what Swamiji calls these dvandvas, one will generally be good and one will generally be positive and one negative. Raga dvesha. Raga dvesha, priya apriya. All of these things. Everybody wants priya. Nobody wants apriya. Everybody wants the nice thing. Nobody wants this dvesha. We all want raga means what we're attracted to. But we can't have one without the other. If we have some sense that this is something I like, then be something I like it because I don't like the other thing. So this dvandva-atita, that we have to learn to go beyond these Swami was the dual throne, love, hate, good, bad. So it's very easy for us to understand that we don't care for the negative things, but these positive things, this is the problem. This is where the attachment comes. But we have to place them in the same category. So it doesn't mean that we shun nice things and we go for bad things, but we should be indifferent somehow, knowing that sometimes good things come, sometimes bad things come.
Could that be sthita prajna?
Yeah, a lot of this sthita prajna, this very famous section, of course, in chapter 2 of Gita. The ideal that's presented to us in Gita is one of this steadiness. Now, we have lots of different paradigms, we can say, with God relate soul. We shouldn't think that every God relate soul is a sthita prajna. This is one thing, that this is someone who is very steady and calm and quiet and peaceful and everything. Now, what about Swamiji? Was he a sthita prajna?
Inside, perhaps. Outside, he was
100% sthita prajna from one point of view. 100%. From the other point of view, highly emotional person. Great ups and downs. He himself used to say it. Yeah, he used to say that was his nature, and how sometimes he would be weeping. He was such an emotional person that he was weeping for joy or whatever it was. Sri Ramakrishna, he gives us 4 paradigms. The 4 paradigms that we find in Viveka Chudamani and also Bhagavata. What are the 4 paradigms for the God relate soul?
which those what
Okay, so what are they?
Bhagavat.
Balakavat. Okay, like a child. Sthita prajna is not like a child. So one doesn't contradict the other. We're different personality types. When that personality type attains God realization, then he or she will exhibit those types of qualities. So some will be very childlike, umadavat. Some will be like a mad person, intoxicated. Sri Ramakrishna was like both of them. Then jadavat. Jadavat. Sometimes will be just lost, like an inert thing, just like a block of wood lying there. Thakur was like that.
Yeah.
When he had it, Thakur was all of them. He was all of them. And then what's the last one? Pishachavat. Pishachavat, like a ghoul or demon or ghost, something like that. The main thing about that is they don't care about pure and impure. There's really beyond all of this. You know the story of the Punnagyani. When this one sadhu came, he looked like a madman, wearing one sneaker or something and carrying a potted bamboo plant, a very odd behavior and everything. And I don't remember, was it Hridoy or was it Hridoy? Huh?
Yeah.
Who somehow had this feeling that he was in the guise of a madman, was a Punnagyani, full knower of Brahman. So he ran after him. And this Punnagyani, he tried to dissuade him through bricks or something. But anyhow, he caught up with him. And he said, "Are you Punnagyani, perfect knower of the Brahman?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, tell me, give me some teaching. And he said, when you make no distinction between this water in Ganga and this filthy ditch water, it means sewer water, then you'll have attained the highest knowledge. So this Thakur practiced all of these things during his tantric sadhana period. Most of that type of sadhana was to get rid of the distinction of this is good, this is bad. And he even had to do things like you take feces and put it in your tongue, things from the droppings of jackals and things like that. Because what is it? It's three gunas. Just the mind is making a distinction. So to go beyond all of that. So Thakur also practiced that. That's the one that wasn't really, I mean, his body was so sensitive to purity that we can't say he really exhibited this Pishatavada very much. But all of the others. So the Stita Prajna, this will be one personality type. Of the direct disciples, probably Swami Turiyananda and Swami Sharadananda. Swami Sharadananda, nothing would bother him. Sometimes Swamiji would get so angry at him that Swamiji would yell at him, that he would scold all the others, and some of the others, they would run off in a corner, or they would be weeping, or they would leave, everything. And Sharadananda, nothing would happen. And he said, you fellow, what's wrong with you? He said, you have the blood of a fish in you. Yeah, or the blood of a frog sometimes. What is that type of fish? Beti or something? I asked about it once. Somebody made it for me. Belly mites, something like it. Anyhow, this is cold water. The temperature doesn't change. They remain the same. So it's one type. So what we get here is similar to Gita and similar to Stita Prajna. Yeah. So that'll be the ideal. Stita Prajna is not, the mind is not agitated by anything. If he gets what he wants, then fine. Doesn't get what he wants, fine. Makes no difference. Why should external things affect the state of mind? That means I have no control over the mind. That's bondage. When we say bond, to break this bondage, it doesn't simply mean that to attain God realization or liberation or anything like that. Bondage is each and every day when the mind is not under our control, when we react according to the external thing. Something negative happens, we feel bad. Positive happens, we feel good. And then after a while, we long for more, or we get tired of it, this and that. The goal with this type of paradigm is to not be affected. That's freedom. When we decide what our mood will be, we're not one of the worst types of bondage is being subject to moods. We see people sometimes and we say something to them and they snap at us. And what do they say? I'm in a bad mood today. Now, what kind of excuse is that? But it's true. We get in a bad mood. Sometimes for no reason we don't even know, or sometimes some obvious thing happens. That means we have no control over the mind. That we're slaves to the mind. The mind decides the mood, and we have to live with it. So this freedom doesn't have to mean this ultimate freedom of liberation. It can be that we're free from the ups and downs of the mind itself. And the very important thing with all of these ideas is that even people who aren't religious, even people who don't have any higher ideal in life, God realization, anything like that, they can understand just from a psychological point of view that we can choose what our state of mind will be. People who practice, affirmations and things like that, that they develop some power, some understanding that this mind can be our best friend. And because who is controlling the mind? The mind is controlling the mind. Who raises the mind and lowers the mind? It's in Gita, we have the term Atman is used for both. And so we raise the self by the self. It means we raise the mind by the mind. or we allow the mind to pull us down. So what's the difference? The mind is controlled. When we have control over the mind, then that mind is our best friend. And Thakur says that mind becomes a guru itself. Yeah, Kunal, you had a question.
I have two questions
Yeah.
related. One of them is that people like Swamiji or even Thakur, they did express emotions. For example, in Thakur's case, when his nephew died, the first day nothing happened, the next day he started to cry. Swamiji did cry at loss and everything. Goodwin's passing away was a big blow. But they are still, Swamiji and Thakur both are realized people. And they do know at the inside it is nothing. The Atman is not affected. But is that an acting, or because they have the human body, they go through those things?
Part of it is that, this is what Thakur himself says, that when the avatar comes, that he takes on not just a human body, but a human mind, and behaves exactly like a human being will behave in many respects. Many respects, of course, completely different. But in many respects, that's why he always says that Rama wept for Sita.
Yes.
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 Yeah. Now, part of this is so that we can relate to them. And part of it is also that they had the very pure human emotions. And we won't find them weeping for their own sake. There's no self behind it. There's a huge difference. There was no Maya to it. There was all this Daya, if we want to say, there's this, this distinction. Thakur makes a very important distinction, that that same attachment to our loved ones, which is the type of bondage for us, if we can expand it to the whole world, then it becomes freeing. So nobody suffered at the suffering of others more than Swamiji. If you would hear that there's an earthquake someplace, could be anywhere, and the thousands of people died, he wouldn't be able to sleep that night. He would be so restless. He would feel that pain. It's not the same as people that lost everything is what will happen to me and how much I'll suffer. See, people die, loved ones die. The mourning is for ourselves. Most of the time, we if they're good people, we feel that nothing to worry about for them. But we miss them. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing or a selfish thing. It's a human type of thing. But in the case of Ramakrishna and Swamiji and the direct disciples and everything, there was no smallness to it. There was no ego sense to any of this. And when Swamiji could suffer with the whole world, type of ecstasy, really. This Swamiji's ability to feel one with everyone. That comes in some of the verses here. We read that towards the end. What was it? All in all and everything. Yeah.
All of it. I did all of it.
Yeah. So that was Swami in Swamiji's case. And say Holy Mother. See, they had a human heart, such a human heart. Plus they were Bengalis. So naturally they'll be emotional. No, but really, unless we see if Swamiji had been a Sthita Prajna, then we say, it's a little dry. Yeah, Thakur thought that was a little dry, that type of ideal. No, ups or down, nothing like that. But Swamiji, to be able to live a full life and experience the highs and the lows and everything, and still be established in the self, there's greatness, tremendous greatness in that.
Maharaj, just to remind me, that story is very touching to me. This woman had lost her son or something and was crying and came to the
Holy Mother. Yes.
And she started to cry.
Yeah, no, what happened?
More violently than the.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a simple village woman. I think she was a midwife or something. I can remember all the details. Holy Mother knew her and everything. And the young child had just died and went to Holy Mother. And everybody thought that Holy Mother will say something to her, that this is the way of life, that this happens, that rely on Thakur, you know, something like that. But Holy Mother didn't say anything. She was almost speechless. And then she herself starts to weep, feeling that same pain and everything. And it took away the grief of that woman.
And the woman started to console her.
Yeah.
So
So,
this okay.
so becoming spiritual doesn't mean becoming cold and having no emotions and not feeling. These very highly spiritual souls, they're much more sensitive than we are. And their ability to feel the pain of others is much higher than ours, because we care too much about ourselves. They're such pure souls. So if we think about it, we can understand that it's a higher ideal. Sthita Prajna ideal is a beautiful ideal. But when we see Thakur or Holy Mother or Swamiji and the direct disciples, we see how they could both live in the world like ordinary people, feel the same emotions that we feel, and at the same time be perfectly free and beyond everything. It is a tremendous type of ideal.
And my second question,
Yeah.
Maharaj, is about the word from. And love, hate, good, bad, and all the duals from.
That means everything, heat and cold. It just means we're all, whatever it is that we have to experience, that good and bad. We have to see, this is titiksha. What is the real meaning of titiksha? That we just accept things. Good and bad we accept. The good comes, we know that, let's say people praise or blame. People praise us. The next minute they may curse us. We don't know. They say something nice to us to our face, behind our backs, and then they say something else. But the whole point is that, why should I allow my mind to be affected by all of that, external things? They praise me, so what? What does that add anything to me? I'm the self. Everything goes back to this very high Dvaita point of view. I am the self, I am the witness. What are they praising? First of all, it's their own understanding of things. And second of all, they're praising something that's very superficial to me, that they say, oh, you're such a good speaker, you're such a good this, you're such a good that. I think of myself, I'm the self, I am the witness. I try not to identify with those things. And the witness is unaffected. This is by definition. The witness is unaffected by anything. The witness is a pure witness. It's just as the mirror is unaffected by anyone who stands in front of it, whether handsome or ugly. Makes no difference to the witness. If I get established in that, then I'm unmoved, I'm unchanged by anything. No matter what happens, whatever anybody says to me, nothing makes any difference. Problem with most people, many people at least, is we're too sensitive. I see it so often. If somebody says the slightest little thing, and it's so get hurt, or feelings get hurt so easily, and we really takes a long time. The ego gets bruised. This ego is such a sensitive thing that we have to be so careful what we say to people and how people will take things and everything, because it gets bruised so easily. So there's a whole idea of the Sannyasin is that, yes, let somebody put a garland around me one day, then another person kick me another day. I won't let my mind be affected. I'll be the same. Yeah.
Maharaj, actually, I as part of my profession, and I'm the so-called assistant head for undergraduate affairs. One of the things I used to do, which apparently is East Coast, what is it called, the self-awareness kind of thing. But I'm not doing that. But I would advise kids that the world will not change for you. The world will come. It will have its blows like that. and good girls, and the girlfriend may leave you today and tomorrow you may leave. So try to, though you cannot change the world, try to remain unaffected by it. Let it be and be. So then I know of people who are basically agnostics and others, who are very Sthita-prajna. Is the opposite true? That means these people will also realize God just because they are almost calm in every circumstance. There are human beings who are not believers in God, but who are so calm, and you will say, yes, go and get rest from them. Yes.
Yeah, I also wonder about this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and not just that, there are people who are so good.
Yeah, yes,
Who are
yes,
so,
and no God. But very,
no,
very
no
good.
God or anything like that.
Mhm.
They live only for other people.
Yes, yes, yes.
They
Yeah.
do good just because it's the
Just
right thing
to do good,
That's
and
it.
that's just their nature.
That's it.
Yeah,
And they get joy out of that. They're happier if somebody else is happy.
very unselfish.
They're happier, say, very often with the mother and children.
Mhm.
If the children are happy, they're happy. They don't care about themselves. Don't think about themselves at all. I don't know what happens. Not that they'll certainly have the best possible future birth that we can imagine. But whether they have God really, who knows what happens at the end, final moment? Who knows? We really can't say. But they're very blessed people. Because selfish people are never happy people. This, I have a very firm conviction about that. Selfish people are never happy people. If you want to be happy, be unselfish. And Swamiji, he was a preacher of unselfishness. God himself, the selflessness. Yeah. And exactly, it doesn't, there's no ethics to it or moral to it. It's not some moral imperative if you want to be happy. Now look at Holy Mother's final message. What's her final message?
Don't look for
Yeah.
in others.
But how does it start?
If you
Jodi
want
Shanti Chalma.
to-
If you want peace of mind. So you're not saying that you have to do it, that this is some high moral principle, that if you do it, you'll get God realization. Nothing like that. If you want peace of mind, my child, don't see the faults of others. Jodi Shanti Chalma. This really, we have to understand that these things will make life smooth and easy for us. We may say that, oh, I don't like this idea, but it may help me with God realization. Let me try it. It's not like that. It's not like that. These are the things that allow us to have some peace of mind, have some contentment. When they say practice surrender, say, why should I surrender? Because as soon as you surrender, you'll find that burden has been lifted off of my shoulders. A certain freedom comes. That yes, I can accept whatever comes and not let it affect my state of mind, not let it affect my inner happiness that's based on something higher. We can do that, and we don't have to be religious people. If we are, and if we have a spiritual goal in mind, all the better, of course. And that helps us. See, when we sit for meditation, what happens? All of the attachments and the desires, all of these things flood the mind. So doing all of this will naturally make our meditation better. And this is why Vairagya, when we hear Arjuna complain, he can't control the mind. Why does Sri Krishna say you need Vairagya? What's the connection? Why doesn't he simply say practice? Spend a little more time, be a little more vigilant, do all of this, because we have to give up this attachment. We have to eliminate the things that keep us from focusing the mind. This was the whole point behind the sannyasa, to remove oneself from that environment which creates more and more desire for things, desire for enjoyment and everything. So all of these things, if we can practice contentment, we can practice little vairagya, we can practice the sharanagati, that we're willing to accept whatever comes as the mother's will for us. The mind becomes really clean and empty, and we find all this anxiety. People suffer so much from anxiety. This is the disease of the modern age: stress and anxiety. How much stress is relieved if we just say, that's mother's will, or my karma. There's another way of doing it. There's another thing that's emphasized here. It's my karma. Another way of saying I accept it. I don't know if I told the story here, but I had a conversation with Swami Sannyasin one time. And did I mention it here? It was a couple of years before he passed away. And he didn't have any of his attendants there at that time. For some reason, they'd went to India or a different center, something like that. There was no one really to really help him when he needed it. So I said to him, well, it's such a shame at this age that all your sevaks have gone away from you. And he looked at me and he said, what can I do? It's my karma. Yeah. Now we know that he didn't do anything his whole life that would cause bad karma. He led a very pure life from his childhood. But it was that attitude of acceptance. And he did it through karma theory. Just that attitude of acceptance. You could see in his face that he really felt that there's no reason for me to have any feel frustration or regret or anger or anything like that. It's my karma. So these attitudes, spiritual attitude, Jaman Bhav love. You know, in the English version, I don't like the translation at all. They say, as is one's feeling of love, so is one's gain. But I think it really means whatever spiritual attitude, if we have the right spiritual attitude, which could be love also, but if we have that attitude, everything is mother's will. Now, I can say that. And if you ask me, do I really believe it? Do I really believe that there's the Divine Mother who's watching my every step and who is saying, oh, now I'll have him trip and it'll be for the best for him? I said, well, I can't really say that I have any firm conviction, but I like that attitude. And I can live by that. Whatever happens, mother's will. Some people will just say, it wasn't in the cards and accept it that way. That's also good. They don't have to take any metaphysical stand on anything like that. Wasn't meant to be. I know, I used to hear that growing up all the time. Something happens and they'll say, it wasn't meant to be. And they drop it. Otherwise, so much frustration. Why did it happen? I wanted it so much. I tried so hard. I should have gotten the raise. I should have gotten the new position. I should have been made president and everything. It wasn't meant to be. Then accept it. Then this peace of mind comes from all of that. So this is what we're getting through much of this. Is a detachment that comes from taking that spiritual attitude and being able to detach ourselves from things and be the witness of things and not let external things bother us too much, raise the mind or lower the mind or anything like that. Okay, so almost 8:30. Do we have any questions from the Zoom people?
Any questions, you can unmute and ask.